because we've had a representative democracy and different forms of democracy and republic for a long time, where we either vote directly for statutes or vote for representatives that vote in turn for us, the majority have been in favor of a lot of atrocities that have happened. And like, if you go back to slavery, that happened because the majority of the people weren't willing to stand up for it and be abolitionists. And of course, the abolitionist movement grew. And of course, you know, obviously we knew what happened. We know what came of that now. But, you know, for most of the atrocities that happen in democratic countries, the majority of the people are for it, or at least not willing to stand against it.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Undoctrination. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Olivia.
And this week, we're going to get into a few things. It was such a slow news week on Twitter that the entire site was like completely captivated by a discussion on whether or not Margot Robbie is mid. Olivia and I were discussing before the call, and I think we landed on the idea that she is not mid, but I do think she's more attractive to women, I think, maybe, than she is men.
And also, there are too many porn-addled men out there who think that all women look like perfect bimbos, essentially. And that's just not the case. And I want people to go outside and touch grass, because if you really think that Margot Robbie, who's a famous movie star, who is a frequent celebrity crush, I feel like, even among men, I feel like whenever I ask one of my male friends, like, oh, like, what's your type? A lot of people say, like, blonde, like, you know, Margot Robbie. But yeah, go outside, touch grass, look at what real women look like. And also, I think a lot of women were fighting back on that hard, because it's like, if Margot Robbie is a 5, because that's typically what mid means,
like
then 2? What the hell are we?
And I feel like I feel like if you saw her in person, her charisma and beauty would like actually blind you. You'd be like,
why?
Okay, I've never met a more beautiful woman in my life. Because in order to be in front of a camera, like, I learned this when we started filming this podcast.
Oh yeah, you look perfect from every angle. If you're a movie star, you don't have a bad angle.
No, you can't. You can't.
Some angles, I have like 5 different chins. Okay,
I could not be a movie star because of my side profile. Like, I have a Phineas from Phineas and Ferb side profile, so I could literally never be an actress. Like, it's not in the cards for me. You know.
I'm not going to confirm or deny that, but I'm just going to say that you are beautiful, and I think you could be an actress. We were right before we started recording. I said that you don't look like a celebrity to me. Like, you don't. I don't think you look like anyone in particular, but you look like you could be a celebrity. Like,
that's
if
very sweet.
Somebody showed me a picture of you and you were on a red carpet, I'd be like, oh, she's beautiful. What movies is she in? Like, I would believe it. Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of women were fighting back against that, because I feel like it was the same people that are always talking about like women's devaluation, I guess, on the sexual marketplace as we lose our eggs and become used and abused. And
Margot Robbie is what, like 35, 34, something like that? I don't know.
So she's worthless.
So yeah.
So she's worthless.
In other words, she's old. She is an old lady and has no value
to those
whatsoever.
People, if women have no value after like 28 or 25, I think people hit the wall at 25 now. That's what I've heard. I will just raise you, Sofia Vergara.
Yeah.
I will raise you, J-Lo. Okay, I will raise you several women who are like 50, 55, and they look great. So
yeah, at first when this whole hit the wall discourse was happening, I will not lie to you, I was very triggered. I started like examining my wrinkles in the mirror. I'm 24, almost 25, and I was like, I'm so close to hitting the wall. Like, I got to start doing things differently, like really prioritize my health. I was very triggered by it. And then I realized, like, it's just stupid things people are saying on the internet. Like, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't. You know? And these are people, again, who don't go outside and don't know what real women look like. Because if I saw you walking in the street, I'd be like, that is a beautiful girl. That is a beautiful girl.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
Also in Atlanta, I mean, apparently everyone stops Olivia and tells her how beautiful she is. So
I think,
you know,
I'm like very popular in the South because of how I'm built, and I'll just leave it like that.
Okay.
But And we talked about this like a week ago, or not even a week ago, like a few days ago when I was at Freedom Fest, and I was feeling self-conscious about how old I look because somebody who will not be named assumed I was about 35.
I do not think you look 35. But yes,
Like,
Freedom Fest. Yeah, I promise
I'm sorry,
you guys.
I'm just looking at my skin and like the
You look
viewfinder
gorgeous
right now,
and
I'm
glowing.
like,
There is nary a wrinkle on your face. I promise.
thank you. Thank you.
promise.
I feel like I have youthful skin, but
You do.
I also like, I know I don't carry myself in a necessarily mature way on this podcast because I feel like I could be myself here. But at Freedom Fest, I'm walking around like, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Oh yeah, I'm from Philly. Like I do carry myself a little bit differently. So maybe I sometimes get like I'm 28 and that's fine.
Yeah.
But 35?
I get that too,
much
Olivia.
stress.
And I have
Much
my
stress.
whole life. And we were talking before this call about like the 7 different facial essences. Like some people's facial bone structure will always make them look like they're older than they are, not in like a negative way, just in a you just have a certain type of essence that comes across. I think that's the case with me because my entire life, everyone has told me that I look older than I am. And they're always like, not in a bad way, like just in the vibe you give off, you know?
But I hope I even out at some point. Like I hope when
Same,
I'm 30,
actually.
I hope when I'm 30, people still think I'm like about this age because I think I also had that facial type because I've always had, like, especially when I talk, you can see like my cheekbones and stuff. And I feel like that makes your face look older. Like I feel like when I was a teenager, I kind of already had like a woman's face, which is fine. But now that I have like an adult job and like grown up life and career aspirations, and I think I talk like an adult. Oh my God, I am an adult. I feel like a 22-year-old teenage girl all the time. But I'm just a little girl.
I'm just a teenage girl in her mid-20s. It's no
But
big deal.
now that I'm like in politics and stuff, people often assume I'm in my 30s, which is
It's unfortunate.
so
It doesn't do a lot
fun.
for confidence, but
So
I don't
fun.
feel like you're in your 30s.
Thank you.
But yeah, you guys, we're not going to be talking about our faces and whether
This
or
is
not we're
so-
mid the whole show.
Okay, okay. This is why we need more news in the news cycle because every time there's a break in the news cycle, we just devolve. Like Twitter devolves into talking about women's looks and
I
women's
know,
value.
and we do it to ourselves. Like, if we're not
Yeah.
distracted by horrific things happening around us, we're going to look too hard in the mirror.
I wish I
and
could
obsess.
like detach and just remove how attractive I am or how attractive other people are from like their value because I feel like men get away with that more and I know that there's a trade-off because I think men are more valued for like what they may be able to provide and I think there's some problematic
It's
things
kind
with
of
that
harder if you think
there's
about
problematic
it, 'cause
things
you
as
actually
well.
really have to work for that. But
Yeah, and a lot of women are born with natural beauty and they, whatever. But just to talk about the female side, because that's what I experience, even going on like TV and stuff, it's like such a stressful thing. Like you're putting on so much makeup, you're putting so much time and effort into your hair. And then some man will like waltz onto the set at the last minute and just plop himself down and be ready to go. And I envy that.
Ugh,
I'm
I
not
know.
judging them. I envy that. But every time I go on TV, inevitably, somebody will make a really rude comment about my appearance. And it doesn't really make me self-conscious because I know that people on the internet are just rude. And they probably, like, when people disagree with what I say, they call me ugly.
yeah.
So, but that's just what we do to women who we disagree with,
Yeah.
But
I think
moving
everyone's
past-
feeling it. Yeah.
Moving past Freedom Fest. Okay, so Freedom Fest was great. I spoke on a panel. It was in Memphis. It was like 5 days long. It was pretty long. I spoke on a panel moderated by Daniel Fishman. And there was, I think, 4 other people on it, 1 guy and like 4 girls. And it was on consent culture,
Interesting.
which I was kind of apprehensive about speaking on in the beginning when they asked me to, because first of all, I was like, what is that? Second of all, when I found out like really what they meant by it, which was more like consent in terms of romantic and sexual relationships, I was like, I like really, first of all, yeah, I'm uncomfortable. Second of all, I never really speak about this publicly, like at length.
Yeah.
Like this might be a conversation I would have like with my friend. It
Yes.
just seemed very personal and like, I don't know. I don't know. But so I do it because I was like, well, I want to go to Freedom Fest. And me and Freedom Fest had this weird thing because last year they invited me to speak on a feminist panel. And I was like the only non-feminist on the panel. Mm-hmm. Oh, and Sarah Higdon was on it. So neither of us are feminists.
We might have to get into what you mean because someone listening might be like, oh my gosh, does that mean you hate women or like don't want us to have rights?
I just spent 5 minutes talking about how women need to be valued for more than just their looks. Yeah. It's just, okay.
There's strings attached to the word.
Yeah. So actually, if you are curious about what we think about feminism, because both you and I have talked about this at length, go back to one of our very first episodes of Undoctrination. We did 2 episodes on the gender wars, and we talked about feminism, and we talked about the war on masculinity. We talked about all that stuff.
Those were fire. Those were really well-researched,
too.
Like, really deep dives.
So, yeah, don't think I hate women. Just go back to those to understand why I don't necessarily identify with the modern feminist movement. If you had asked me 50 years ago, am I a feminist? I probably would have said yes. But to go back to Freedom Fest, so they're always asking me to be part of panels that I'm like, why am I here? But I think they asked me to be a devil's advocate, and I actually appreciate that, and I like that now. And so everyone on the panel is talking about, well, we have to, and obviously this is correct, we have to raise our men and boys to respect consent. Obviously that's correct. And I did bring up, when I got the mic, I was like, so at first I was confused why I was asked to be part of this panel. But then I thought about how I'm a young woman. I was the youngest person on the panel. I'm a young woman in the liberty space. I've been to a lot of liberty conferences and conservative conferences. I've been to Turning Point. I've been to YAL. I've been to Freedom Fest. I've been to CPAC. I've been to AMP Fest. I've been to all these different things. All of the things. And I will say that while not at all these things, nothing has happened to me. I will say something happened to me at one of these things, which I didn't even get into at the thing. But that's why at first I was a little bit apprehensive about going to this in the first place, because I was like, this is a little personal. But I've heard of something happening to somebody at all of those things.
Every single
one. I've heard a story.
Freedom Fest, I haven't heard anything bad happen, but I actually have severe conference anxiety because of these things. So
not this Freedom Fest, actually. Yeah. So at the time when I was answering the question, every single one basically besides this Freedom Fest, which is great. And obviously I was, for the ones that I've heard stuff with, I wasn't there, so I can't speak to the legitimacy of those, but I've heard something weird. And that's very common. And I don't think that's specific to libertarians. I don't think that's specific to political conferences. I think that's specific to
drinking.
When you to drink, to having a bunch of usually young men and young women where there's a disproportionate amount of men compared to women. So this can happen at any conference, but I think it happens at these libertarian conferences and conservative conferences a lot, just because they're a male-dominated field. And not all the times it's a big malicious, like violent thing. A lot of it is alcohol induced, and where lines between consent may be blurred. And so we were kind of talking about that for a little bit, but somebody in the audience, an elderly, cute man, so I felt bad about saying this after he asked a question, but he was like basically asking, how do we reconcile democracy with consent? Because I had brought up, if your friend was in a relationship and their boyfriend or husband or girlfriend or wife or whatever was taking a part of their check, using it to commit crimes, telling you when and where to leave your house, especially in terms of the COVID lockdowns and things like that, you'd be like, that's an abusive relationship. You need to get the hell out of that relationship. So he asked from the crowd, well, how do you reconcile democracy with consent? Because obviously we did not consent to be governed. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly right. In a gang rape, 9 out of 10 people agree with what's going on. And the look and the sounds from the crowd, like there was an audible gasp.
Wait, but Olivia, that's a fantastic point.
Yeah, he had a heart attack and then keeled over right after that. Wow. But
I mean, it's jarring, but
It was jarring, but I felt like I wanted to use that metaphor or example because we were talking about consent in terms of like, sexual relationships. And we're also talking about libertarianism. And I just felt like to drive the point home, I kind of needed to be a little bit explicit and a little bit controversial because, I wanted to make it clear to the audience that democracy is not consent. The consent of the majority doesn't make things right. Every atrocity, almost every atrocity that's happened in this country, because we've had a representative democracy and different forms of democracy and republic for a long time where we either vote directly for statutes or vote for representatives that vote in turn for us. The majority have been in favor of a lot of atrocities that have happened. And like, if you go back to slavery, that happened because the majority of the people weren't willing to stand up for and be abolitionists. And of course, the abolitionist movement grew. And of course, obviously we knew what happened. We know what came of that now. But, for most of the atrocities that happen in democratic countries, the majority of the people are for it, or at least not willing to stand against it. So it's kind of one of those things that makes me want to be just a full-blown anarchist because if 51% of the people can vote my rights away, then how are we in a free society?
Yeah.
How are we in a free country?
It's a really good point, and I don't think people often look at their votes as being a forceful thing, right? Like they don't think, they think in terms of outcomes. Like, okay, I want the world to be a better place for this group, or, I want us to be a more equal society and have less wage disparity. And what we're going to get into, which is the climate activists, I want our country to stop producing as much greenhouse gas emissions or less pollution or whatever it may be, whatever their aim is. They're looking at the outcome and not at what is needed to get to that outcome or the efficacy of the proposed plans towards that outcome. So I think when people first get involved in politics, that is like the very basic level of involvement, right? I remember there was this video that came out from Taylor Swift's documentary where she's talking about how she wants to speak out against Marsha Blackburn. And she's like, she hates like gay people or something. I forget what it was about.
She's all types of bigot, all types of phobes and isms, basically.
But it was like a very base level understanding of politics. And I don't really know much about Marsha Blackburn, and I can't really pretend to know exactly what was going on then. But there are very like basic levels of understanding of politics, and then there are deeper levels. And when we're talking about consent, that, in my opinion, is a deeper level of political understanding because you're thinking about the roadmap to get to your ideal solution and an ideal society. And a lot of the times, your ideal society is something you're trying to force, and it's going to involve hurting people. And the majority of laws, you have to kind of take a step back and think, okay, well, we're basically holding people at gunpoint over this, right?
Right. Do I want to enforce this with violence? And a lot of people will never ask themselves that question. And I think that I watched that Taylor clip that you're talking about a while ago. And I even think that she meant very well. I don't think that she's a bad person. And I don't think that she for one second imagined marching people at gunpoint to do what she wants them to do. No. But I don't think the majority of the people on either side of the aisle think that. And there are very, very few things that I could personally justify having somebody point a gun at them over. And those things are basically limited to violations of the non-aggression principle. So, I mean, when we talk about consent, I feel like that's really the only thing I can justify using some type of force over. And obviously there's arguments over what's a violation of the non-aggression principle because we have this debate. Even in the Libertarian Party, there's this debate over what about gender-affirming care for children. A lot of people think that's child abuse. I'm in that camp. A lot of people also think it's medical care. It's necessary medical care, or they will commit suicide. They will be depressed. All these horrible things will happen to them.
Yeah.
But so yeah, there are debates over that. And I don't think it's necessarily a black and white issue, but I am like very firm in what I believe on that issue.
And how would you describe the non-aggression principle for those who aren't aware?
Duh. Okay, so the NAP is usually what it's referred to as in the libertarian spaces. Yes. So the non-aggression principle is very simple. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. So if it violates somebody's right to life, the pursuit of happiness, their property, that's basically a violation of the NAP. So if I steal your things, if I steal your property, if I tax you without your consent. So the government violates our NAP every single day.
Yes.
They take a portion of our check and use it to go commit war crimes. So they violate our NAP and then violate other people's NAP in the Middle East.
Yes.
So that's kind of going back to the whole we're in an abusive relationship with the government thing. Because if somebody did that to you on an individual person-to-person basis, you would be calling the cops on them.
Yeah.
You would be calling the cops on them.
And there is a lot of debate over what violates the non-aggression principle. Like what exactly is violence? Like we got into a whole debate the other day over intellectual property. Because that's a big debate within libertarianism. That's not a black
and white issue. Yeah, and I actually don't know enough about the topic, I think, to form an official opinion
on it. It might be a good topic to talk about here because it is so complex. And usually when I talk about a topic here, I get to like take a step back and really deep dive into it, which is why I love doing the podcast because I'm only 24 years old, right? Like
She's
don't know everything. I'm just a 24-year-old teenager, you guys. So I don't know everything. So like exploring topics to talk about on this show actually helps me go and gather information about it. Like it kind of gives me a structure within to research. So we could invite someone on or like host a debate between two people who have differing opinions that are kind of experts on their side.
And we're in the background eating popcorn and be like, okay, point for you, point for you.
Period. You know, like giving commentary.
Period. Whoever convinces us one way or the other, you guys win.
Yeah, but that's a big debate. Like, you know, is intellectual property, does that fall under property? You know, like the gender care for minors, I agree with you. I do think it's child abuse because I don't think you have your wits about you yet to be able to make a decision like that.
I mean, it's just like the whole trans kid thing is so funny to me because, and especially when they're under a certain age. So now I feel like there are a lot of kids who are like in middle school, like teenagers and up, like 12, 13 and up, who it may not be from their parents, but it's from somebody. It's from social media or it's from their friends at school. But when they're like below 10 and they have not been to middle school yet, they don't.
It's definitely from the parents.
Bro, it's like having a vegan cat. Like, you know who made that decision for them. It's so ridiculous.
What if they have allergies, Olivia?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have a vegan cat, by the way. Yeah. I feed I was Tom.
I'm calling cat protective services on you and
Tom like the most bougie dinners ever.
Really?
Like, I have almost fully transitioned him away from dry food. Like I mix it in so that he has like a balance or whatever. But he eats these like bougie canned meats. So he has lamb, salmon, fish, chicken, like all the nicest
that boy
food.
Eating better than me.
He's eating good. That's why he's so fat. But
I need to see him in person.
Yeah.
This is so funny though, because my dogs eat like regular dog food, but they love certain vegetables. Like they love to eat carrots. Love them.
Really? Carrots are good for you.
Yeah, I think they help their eyesight or something. I don't know. But I did quickly want to circle back to something that Larry Sharp actually said. It was during, I forget what school he was at, but it was during one of his talks when he was doing his little like college tour thing. And he was addressing a class of college students and basically posing to them what the consequences are for voting or for, I guess, advocating for whatever policy that they're advocating for. And he said, raise your hand if you guys have guns. And I think a couple students had guns. Wrong. All of you have guns. You just hired yours. If you call the police, you're calling your hired guns to show up.
Wow.
If you vote
Yeah.
for a law and somebody violates that law, your hired guns that you pay for, whether you consent to pay for them or not, your hired guns are showing up to enforce that law. So everybody in America has guns, hired or not. And everybody in America has the ability to call the cops and get your guns, to rush there, and maybe they use them, maybe they don't, but everybody has some level of ability to enforce their will a little bit upon others. And usually when people call the cops, it's for like a crime, but especially in terms of enforcing the law, like especially when we looked at COVID lockdowns, those hired guns will go out and force you at gunpoint to do whatever they want you to do, because they were granted those powers by the state of emergency, by the government.
Yeah, that's why it's really important to vet your politicians. A lot of people vote based on vibes, which I think is like really bad.
Are we not supposed to do that?
One of the things they teach you when you first start getting into politics is be as like vague as possible, right? So like imagine a campaign sign with, your candidate's name and it just says values, right? Like you kind of
family,
insert
values,
family,
jobs. Like, okay, I love all those things.
Yeah. But it's like really important to get into the nitty gritty and like really assess. And if you can, ask the person you're voting for, like, what would you do in this specific situation? You can kind of see how their thought process works when it comes to voting on legislation.
Yeah. The town hall debates is where they all mess up, because that's when people really ask, like, what are you going to do in this situation? And then they go like,
Yeah, I heard the ones last week with Tucker Carlson were a train wreck for some of the kind of
I heard it was a train wreck for Pence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
poor little guy.
Yeah, the Republican Party has become a lot less hawkish on foreign policy. And that's like the voter base. And that's a really good thing.
They're listening to their base, so that's good.
Yeah, but like certain politicians haven't caught up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, if the GOP wants to keep any semblance of the young vote, any semblance at all, they will back off. So I guess who's the most hawkish? Like Nikki Haley? She's pretty hawkish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, people are not going to like her. People don't even like her. So yeah. But I wanted to bring this up just because it's funny. But have you ever seen the show BoJack Horseman, or know what it is?
Yes. I haven't watched the whole thing, but I know the concept.
So what you were talking about just reminded me of when Mr. Peanut Butter ran for governor of California, and he couldn't decide if he was pro or anti-fracking for like the entire campaign, because he had to basically keep both sides donating to him and voting for him. And so when you said that like candidates keep it very vague on purpose, it just reminded of him being like,
they do.
No,
they
yes,
do.
no. But yeah.
And getting into that, candidates keep it very vague on fracking and other climate-related issues because there's so much hullabaloo about it.
That's a perfect word to describe it.
It's a great word. And I want to pose this question. Why do we keep expecting the government to solve this issue for us? We have some of the best and brightest minds in the world working on this issue. And they're in colleges. Like environmental engineering is a really popular up-and-coming field in colleges, and a lot of people care about this issue. A lot of young people care about environmental issues. We have grown up learning about global warming in schools, learning that the world is going to end in 30 days or something.
It's not called global warming anymore. It's called climate change. Get it right.
Yes. So obviously, young people are cued in, and those young people are now going to elite universities and they're studying these issues and they're launching businesses and, getting involved in all sorts of ways. And I really commend that because one thing to note about our generation is that we have access to lots and lots of information, but we also have kind of like two paths to go down well, maybe 3. Like, one is apathy, right? Like, just not caring anymore. But the
Chronic
other 2 paths,
cynicism.
if you care, are it's like, you know, either becoming totally hopeless and angry and like, you know, going into activism and protesting. And we're going to get into the absolute insanity of different styles of protest from these people. You can do that route, or you can choose to dedicate your energy and your time and, you know, your labors of love into finding solutions and figuring out how to tackle this in your own individual way. So the negative path, because I was thinking the other day, I had seen this video of this wedding that was happening, and it looked like a nice wedding. This couple looked fairly well off. And this crazy lady comes up and like dumps orange confetti on them as like a climate protest as they're leaving the church. And this rage boiled up inside of me. And I was just like, if that happened to me on my wedding day, like, first of all,
I'm going to jail.
I'm going to jail.
Guess
and then
who's
I will
going to
hold
jail
a
tonight?
grudge for so long that it won't go away when I die. I will come back as a ghost and haunt the ancestors of the person that did that to me and ruined my wedding day. Like, there are 2 things you don't mess with when it comes to women, and it's their children and their marriage. Okay. So that was a choice.
Yeah.
And it seems that the crazy climate activists, especially overseas, there's some stuff that's been happening here, and I'm going to go through a list of stories. These crazy climate activists are like dead set on doing the most annoying thing possible, like being the biggest nuisance in the room. And I understand why they're doing it. They're doing it so they can get into the press, right? Because if you look at the different tactics they're using, it's like they took Mad Libs and just like mashed together a bunch of crazy things.
Run onto the field in the middle of the women's congressional softball game and link arms and just start chanting, because they did that like last week or 2 weeks ago.
Guess what the game was supposed to be? Yes, they did.
It was raising money for cancer or something?
Yes, it was raising money. Wait, I have the organization in case anyone wants to look it up. Young Survival Coalition, which helps young women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer. And a lot of the congresswomen that were there had previously had breast cancer. And so it was a really important event for them. They were raising a lot of money. They were raising awareness for this great organization. And these obnoxious people run onto the field and hold up this game. And they did not hold up the men's game like that. You know, it was like a very big nuisance. And
That's
it's just
so
like
weird, because didn't they look into it at all and be like, okay, so this isn't raising awareness for the thing that we're activists for, but it's raising awareness for something else that's really, really good. But we're just going to draw attention away from that anyways and stop these people mid-game.
Listen.
Also, I will say that if somebody did that during my wedding day, I would be so unsympathetic to the cause. I would just start littering or something. I've never littered in my life, but
I am so anti-littering.
I would be throwing lit cigarettes into and starting bushfires at that point. I wouldn't care. If that happened at my wedding, I would dump oil into the ocean. You know those commercials where it's like Dawn dish soap like scrubbing the oil off of like a duck? I would be re-oiling the ducks.
No, don't really.
If that happened.
The duck.
I would be doing a lot of I would be whaling. I would join a Japanese whaling boat. When we were talking about whale wars, I would join a Japanese whaling boat.
Start hunting down the whales.
I would poach animals.
Endanger.
I would be up at the North Pole holding a blow dryer to the glaciers so the polar bears don't have anywhere to live anymore. Okay? I would be buying 6 packs of Coke and taking them out and throwing the rings into the ocean so I could kill sea turtles.
Not the intact ring.
If that happened at my And that happened on my wedding.
Okay, this is emotionally charged for us, okay? Don't mess around with our weddings. Do you hear me?
I'm just saying.
Don't turn Olivia into a
Don't do
poacher
it.
and litter.
It won't even be my fault. It'll be
Okay.
y'all's fault if y'all do that to me. Don't turn me into... I don't want to be that person, but I will.
Yeah.
But yeah. Just throwing that out there.
So... See, we were off for like 2 weeks, and I was like,
I know,
man,
I'm crazy.
The world looks darker. Like, I'm not laughing as much. And it's because I didn't get to hop on a podcast with Olivia last week.
I'm just brightening your reality.
Man,
right now.
yeah.
I just did it. It's brighter in here now.
But anyways, so yeah, they genuinely feel like they want to inconvenience. By the way, the average everyday person, like it's not even politicians all the time that they're targeting. Obviously, the Congressional Women's softball game, those were a bunch of politicians, but it's affecting normal women and a cause that's going to support normal women. And you know what? I wouldn't doubt if they knew that this was a fundraiser. I'm pretty sure it's always a fundraiser. I just think these people are anti-human. So they don't care about causes. And that's a big charge to lob at them, but they genuinely believe that humans are causing the extinction of the globe. And so this is a war between us and the rest of the earth. And, you know, that cause doesn't matter because it goes to benefit people like our cause. Mother Earth is the most important.
Yeah, I mean, we all live here. It is important to take care of the earth. I was a Girl Scout, okay? When I say I don't litter and I leave a place in nature better off than I found it, I'll pick up trash if I see it on the side of the road, stuff like that.
Same.
But I think it ties, when you said it's anti-human, it definitely is. And we've talked about antinatalism, I think, a little bit on here before. But it's usually the same people who are like, they shame women or shame families for having a lot of children, or they shame people for planning a life with a lot of children. Yes. And they're like, oh, we're already overpopulated. We're ruining the world.
That is not true.
I don't think a single Western country is overpopulated.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us are actually struggling to replace in birth rates.
Yes, and actually global poverty has gone down even though population has gone up. So...
Oh, well, thank you, capitalism.
Thank you, capitalism. The world is not a fixed pie. But either way, that was the thing they did. The ones in Germany they're gluing themselves to roads. Olivia, when I say Mad Libs, like mashing together keywords to like get the most amount of traffic online.
They're literally Mad Libs, though. Did you get that? That they're literally Mad Libs. Yeah. My mind.
Your mind.
It's so powerful. Maggie, did you miss me? I
missed you so much.
Dude, somebody at Freedom Fest came up to me and was like, Olivia, you're so funny. I need you on my podcast. I was like, I am kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
A little bit. But yeah, they are literally Mad Libs. Okay, carry on.
They are.
What are they doing in Germany?
They're very mad. They're gluing themselves to roads. Okay. So there was this video going around on Twitter, which also drew my attention to the subject, of these two young girls just like walking around. It looks like they're holding hands, but then you actually look and their hands are like plaster glued to cement. And it's because they glued themselves to the road. Oh. So they've been doing that in Germany. They've just been gluing themselves to the road to stop
out
traffic.
of the road.
They were cut out of the road. They also glued themselves to airport runways and caused a bunch of like delays. And I think what their whole thing is, there's a group. It's called Last Generation. In Germany.
That's so dramatic.
Whatever.
We are not I know. Please never have kids. Please let you be the end of your bloodline. But everybody else is fine.
But yeah, they are protesting greenhouse gas emissions, especially within the transportation sector. And what's interesting about it being the transportation sector is that, in my opinion, is an area where we have made such incredible progress. But also, transportation is vital to the world, like, continuing to function, right? So if you're trying to limit transportation, you're also limiting people's access to food resources. And a lot of these people are in, Western countries that have benefited greatly from, capitalism and the free market. And so we're all very wealthy and comfortable by global standards. These people don't know what global poverty looks like and how all of these solutions they're proposing would probably kill
Maggie, what do you mean
globally.
The entire United States can't be just one little walkable city? What do you mean? What do you mean? Because I feel like we should all just live in a walkable city.
You know that Jennifer Lawrence video on Hot Ones where she's like, what do you mean?
Oh, yeah. What do you mean? What do you mean? Everyone go watch that. I love Jennifer Lawrence.
I do too.
People were saying Jennifer Lawrence was mid too. By the way, she's not mid.
Yeah.
She's beautiful. She's my Katniss.
I was watching Don't Look Up last night with Jennifer Lawrence, and she in that movie seems like the kind of person that would be gluing themselves to the road. But in the movie, there's like a meteor coming towards Earth, and nobody's freaking out about it.
Oh well, maybe
it's
I'd
an
do it too.
allegory for climate change. But also, all of this science that we've been working with is not actually conclusive, and a lot of the things that we've been hearing will happen haven't.
Growing up, my dad would always say, well, when I was a kid, they were saying that we're entering another ice age. He would always say that.
Yeah.
Because
I don't believe
that
it.
that was what the scientific community was saying decades ago.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there was one more that I really wanted to bring up, because you know how we've all been paying attention to those pride parades and everything, and like, oh, there's kids here, and like, not safe for work things happening.
They're walking around in diapers. They're dog walking people. It's horrible.
Man, there was a World Naked Bike Ride Day. Okay. And one happened in Wisconsin, I think. So they did
So people's ding-a-lings were just out?
Yes. So
I feel like that would hurt, like on the bike seat.
Yes.
Like logistically speaking.
I think so too. That would be really uncomfortable. So they did it for body positivity reasons, obviously. And also to protest like oil and climate change, which I'm not sure what nudity and climate change have in common.
Here I go buying 6-packs and cutting the rings off and throwing them into the ocean because I don't want to see a naked ding-a-ling bike past me to protest oil. Like this, I'm gonna be on America's Most Wanted by the amount of ducks I will throw into the oil if I see that. I'm not joking.
Olivia. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so there was this one bike ride, and someone took a picture of a child who was probably around 10 years old participating in the bike ride, if you know what I mean. And like police investigated. Apparently no laws were violated. But that's a thing that happened.
Why?
So these people,
I thought you were going to say like children were caught in the middle of it. Like they biked past a group of children. So you were saying a child was on the bike with the naked people. Okay.
Yes. Although I'm pretty sure like residents there like know to avoid this certain bike path at that time. But one of the organizers in response to the controversy about this said, and I quote, "You can't tell any aged person if they can protest or they cannot protest. Everybody is welcome."
I don't like that because when they start talking about, do you follow Shoe on Head? Because she does I love her. She does a really great job at calling out these people who, I think there's MAP, like minor attracted person / pedophile. They have dog whistles now. And it's always like, oh, you're ageist, or any aged person can do this, or you're like discriminating based on age when you say anything that's like, oh, that's inappropriate if a child does that. A child does not have the right to do X, Y, and Z. And they start saying that basically you're some type of bigot against children. And that's what that sounded like to me. Like, oh, any aged person has the right to protest. No, any aged person does not have the right to join some naked political movement. What the hell? Like, actually,
I agree. It's very concerning. And like, I would like for the conservative movement, since we care deeply about children, to shift focus for a moment to the climate activists, because this stuff is happening at their protests, and it's like an inherently antinatalist philosophy the deeper you go. They don't think we should be having children anymore. Like they think that's genuinely a bad thing. And if you pay attention online, they will be in people's comment sections when they're like, yeah, baby number 3. And they're like, you're a horrible person. Like, you're destroying the world.
3 is such a normal amount of kids, I feel like.
Yeah.
But they take it really, really far. And they tell people to just like adopt. Everybody should adopt. And I do think more people should adopt. Like, adoption is great.
Right.
But what the heck are they talking about?
I don't know, but I will say conservatives have kind of been really quiet on this issue for a long time. But I think part of that is because we don't want to go about policy changes to solving it. So everyone's favorite person to hate or love on the internet, Elon Musk, he has this style of entrepreneurship that I really admire because he looks at societal level issues. And this is, by the way, the best way to be an entrepreneur. It's to find a need or a want and then address it for people. Like, find the place where something is missing, where you can improve people's lives. So Tesla is one of those companies, right? And when Tesla first started making their electric cars, they were very expensive, and they still are expensive. But how many more Teslas do you see on the road nowadays? I see a lot more. And like, literally the other day, I pulled up to a stoplight and there were 2 Teslas near each other.
Dude,
just
if you're in LA,
place.
A Tesla is every other car in LA, to be honest. But
crazy.
Since coming back to DC, I have seen more. And I believe that Uber actually has some type of deal with Tesla, because I noticed that there's a lot of Uber drivers with Teslas. And no offense to Uber drivers, but I'm like, how are they affording Teslas? But I read somewhere that Uber actually like partners with some drivers and like will help you pay off your Tesla, because it is actually a good business decision for Uber to have more Teslas and like e-vehicles.
That actually makes sense.
Also, Elon Musk is like single-handedly, actually not, him and Nick Cannon are like repopulating the earth by themselves, because both of them have like
style.
Literally. In 50 years, everybody's going to either be related to Nick Cannon or Elon Musk, because both of them have a million kids.
I read this story, just to sidetrack for a second, I read this story about a man who was Slavic and went to New Zealand and, you know, married a Maori woman. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is off the cuff. And they had like 13 kids. And now there's a whole ethnic group of people descended from them that have very specific features. Isn't that crazy?
That's a little crazy.
Like kind of goals. Like you create your own little like, you know.
I think, but to be an ethnic group, there has to be some type of inbreeding going on.
I know. I was thinking about that. I read it on Twitter. It might be fake.
Was it like hundreds of years ago? Because I feel like
it was in the 1800s. So
okay.
Who knows? Anyways, people like Elon Musk saw a need in society, so saw this increasing desire for people to have choices that are more sustainable and more eco-friendly. And there's money to be made there. And these people, the crazy climate activists, hate capitalism and hate billionaires and hate money, right? They see it all as bad, as all of its, you know, bad motivating factors, and capitalism's the thing that's in the way for us. Even though this is the way people are like naturally best at cooperating with each other. But really, capitalism and the free market and the major movement behind environmental activism has led to companies creating more sustainable options like electric cars, but also just think about all of the ways we can now buy secondhand clothes, for example.
Oh yeah, I'm going thrifting tomorrow. I'm so excited.
I love thrifting. I basically buy nearly everything secondhand. And I'm talking like clothes-wise, probably 75%.
Oh, well, like, that's very sustainable and very good.
Sustainable. But I'm not the only one. Like, that's how the majority of girls our age like to shop now. And we actually have the
honestly,
options.
I feel like it's a little bit evenly split, because there's the thrifter girls and there's like the fast fashion girls. And to be honest, I've done my fair share of fast fashion shopping, but the quality isn't really there. And you can thrift good quality stuff for the same price, like the same cheap price as fast fashion.
Same here. I started doing it maybe 4 or 5 years ago, like really heavily thrifting. But before that, when I was a teenager, like I did a lot of, like I would go thrifting occasionally. I just had to learn how to do it. And now that more people are shopping at thrift stores, I think more people are donating like cute clothes to thrift stores. So I think it's a bit easier now. But
almost every clothing article I've ever grown out of or don't wear anymore has circulated through a Salvation Army. Like almost everything I've ever owned in my life.
Or consignment stores. But these things are popping up more and more because there's a demand for them. So I fear that a lot of, and I'm calling them crazy, but I get it, like these climate activists that are doing insane things for attention have this deep dread that the world is going to end. And if you thought the world was going to end, like you'd be doing crazy stuff too.
Like I said, a lot of these people have good intentions, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
That's very true.
If you do that crap to me on my wedding day, I am clubbing a baby seal.
I completely agree. I am 100% behind you. And I'll say this, pollution and littering is probably...
You're a disgusting person.
I've
seen people drive down the road and throw like a whole takeout bag out the window. Like just wait till you get to the gas station.
Literally,
every single gas station has a
Olivia,
trash can.
That makes me like, I see red when I see littering.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it is so easy not to do it.
Yeah.
And
when I get into somebody's car and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry for the mess, and they have to like, there's some trash in the backseat, I'm like, you're not a litter bug. That's fine.
Period.
More power to you, sis.
Yeah.
Just
keep the trash.
Keep the trash. Build it up. I don't care. Make a little trash brick like Wally. I don't care.
But yeah, this weekend just like reinforced this deep seated hatred of littering for me. So I am with America's Future in Atlanta, and it's like a young professionals organization. We get together like once a month to network and talk about, you know, local problems, local solutions, that kind of thing. It's really community centric, and I love that about it. But we partnered with the American Conservation Coalition, ACC. They just started a new Atlanta chapter, and we went to go clean up a stream, right? And can I just say, that was the most disgusting stream. And it was just like in this beautiful park, and it's like in the woods. And then you get to the stream, and they told us about the streams and where they lead. They lead to major river ways. You get to the stream, and it is like a swamp of trash. And it's not like people walked into the forest, you know, and just were like, oh, look, a river. Bloop. Like, here's my trash, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's not what happened. No, this stuff got picked up when it rained and got drained into these creeks, which then flow into the Chattahoochee River.
So people throw something on the side of the road, and it goes into the gutter and goes into the
Yeah,
the
what
river.
do you think it does? Do you think it just, like, melts? Or like poof, like
They
it
don't
disappears.
care.
It doesn't
These
disappear.
people have a 1 second span. Like they don't think of anything that happens beyond what they do. It's people who really don't care about cause and effect, and they don't care about the energy or the impact they're putting out in the world.
Right.
And
very
it's
selfish.
sad. And when I was back living in LA, I would go with my friend to walk her dog in this nature reserve, like a really expansive one.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about LA is unfortunately there's homeless people everywhere. And so they would set up tents, and they actually would throw stuff in the river, because I saw stuff that was like clearly from homeless encampments, just like in the river.
I picked up a pair of jeans.
It was disgusting. Oh, wow.
That had been soaking in this nasty trash creek water. Ugh. No.
Yeah. Back in college, there was like a similar group on campus, and I remember going with them and picking up trash around town. And it was filthy. And this was kind of a small college town, and it was like beer cans. There was a lot of alcohol bottles, a lot of like empty cigarette packs, a lot of takeout, like McDonald's stuff. And it's just like, again, the gas stations are everywhere. Your home has a trash can, I assume. Like,
Yeah.
you can even, you're not even supposed to do this, but if you're walking down the street, you can open your neighbor's trash can and throw something in there. Like, there's trash cans everywhere, honestly.
Genuinely, yes. There was one creek that I went to, and there was trash everywhere. Literally 10 steps away, there was a trash can. It was like, are you
always like that.
freaking kidding me?
Because for them, it's not the convenience. They just hate themselves and they spew their hate into the world. But
I will recommend.
I'm so passionate about anti-littering, but I went like full genocidal. I would go full genocidal if somebody did that at my wedding. So maybe somebody did that at their wedding and they're just taking on the world. Maybe I have no room to judge, but yeah.
Maybe so. Maybe this woman's great grandmother did it at her wedding and now she's haunting. I don't know. But
possible.
I will say, trash pickup and joining a group like ACC is a great way to get involved in your community and make the world a better place.
Yeah, you don't have to glue yourself. You don't have to cement yourself. Yeah. You don't have to throw paint onto a priceless painting.
I think part of the problem is that people feel totally out of control over these things. And so they do things like gluing themselves to roads, and they ask Congress or legislative bodies to intervene. Like I said before, best and brightest in our country are working on these issues behind the scenes in ways you don't know about, but you can research. The best and brightest are not in Congress. They're not the people writing the laws.
Not
they
even
suck,
close.
Okay, they're
not
stupid.
Even close.
If you
shout out to Thomas Massey though, but yeah,
we love Thomas Massey. He's a sustainable king. Okay. Have you seen?
Yeah, right. Isn't his home like self-sufficient? He has like solar panels and stuff.
Yes.
I love that. Also, I wanted to shame Taylor Swift real quick, because you know how many times she uses that private jet? Like 1 million times a year. And she's talking about Marsha Blackburn as a homophobe. You know what's doing worse to the world is not people spending $200 on a plane ticket, to go visit their family, to go to work. It's the people who have a private jet and use it every single week, every single day.
I will say, it's for a good cause, the concerts. But yes, I agree. A lot of the people.
Did you see that video of people on a plane, and it was all people going to like the Eras tour? Yeah. I would have stood up and screamed Allahu Akbar and ruined everybody's day if that was me on the plane. So don't ever get me on a plane with a bunch of Taylor Swift fans. I would have ruined everybody's day because they're ruining mine.
I have calmed down about Taylor Swift and my
You're her
standing.
demographic. You're supposed to like her.
I am, but I'm not like I really like Taylor Swift, but I admire her more from like a business perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she's a boss woman.
I think she's so intelligent.
She clearly makes a lot of money. Like, I'm not going to deny that. Mm-hmm. But don't act like you're for all the little people and you're like some liberal feminist.
She thinks she is, though.
Climate
That's
change.
the problem. Like, people want to do something, so they go on social media, say stuff. We do that, I'm going to be honest. And then they will ask Congress. That's
my reach, though. She has millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. She might be a billionaire at this point. I wouldn't even be surprised. But she could pay off anybody she wants. I mean, seriously, she could start the Taylor Swift PAC today and change the way that things are run in this country.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All I got is this is all I got.
She's trying.
This microphone is all I got.
I know she's trying to support her own causes, and I can't knock her for that. I'm not one of those people that thinks that like if you're a celebrity, you shouldn't say stuff because you have a platform. That's pretty. That's pretty valuable. But I would say encourage people. But you have money, voting,
which is even more important.
Instead of pointing it towards the government and saying, "Hey, real quick, can you fix this problem by forcing people to pay higher bills for energy consumption and completely change their way of life?" Instead of doing that, you can put your efforts, if you choose that this is like, if this is the biggest issue for you, go study environmental engineering or other related courses in college and make it your career. Like, figure out a way to actually have an impact with your life instead of asking stupid politicians to come and solve the problem for you, because they're not going to solve the problem.
Girl, you better open up the Taylor Swift nuclear power plant or something because you could literally do that. But when you said that reminded me, because this is like, I don't know, maybe it's controversial, but I actually kind of like Kim Kardashian, and I really liked her a lot when she like took the law thing and criminal justice reform thing really seriously and started studying and like went to the White House, and like she did lobby the government to do it, but she actually showed up and showed out and was advocating for specific cases and specific women and men and people who may have been falsely accused or served their time to be freed.
She gained a lot of my respect.
Yeah.
With that.
And like, yeah, there's a lot of things about the Kardashians that's like, okay, but I can't knock her for that. But yeah, Taylor Swift, I mean, yeah, instead of telling us to all vote Democrat or whatever, open the Taylor Swift nuclear power plant, open the Taylor Swift solar farm, wind farm, open the Taylor Swift Section 8 housing to get these people off the street. I don't know, but she can afford to do all of the above.
Yeah, I mean, hey, like, put your money where your mouth is. You know what I mean? But yeah, and if you're an individual who cares about it and doesn't want to dedicate your life's work to working in environmental stuff, just there's like miniature behaviors you can do to
like
have
thrifting, like we were just talking about.
Yeah, like sustainable fashion for the girls is like, that's one of the best ways to actually have an impact and have it be fun. Like you can still have fun with this.
And all those old people close in the Salvation Army, they're coming back around. Okay, they're on trend again. Those oversized flannels, those baggy jeans, those belts, those graphic tees. Yeah, that's on trend now.
Yeah,
so go get you some.
And there's great dresses there too, as the dress connoisseur.
There are like if you're into like sundresses and flowy dresses and things like that, those are all coming back around again. So yeah, I'll go get you some.
Period. Okay. Well, thank you guys. Period. I think we should wrap this because we've been going for a while, but
we made some points. I may have incriminated myself several times, but we made some points.
Yeah, this was a wonderfully unhinged episode of Undoctrination. Make sure to hit like, subscribe, leave us a comment. Should we have like a climate expert on? I think that could be really cool.
Oh, we should probably ask somebody from ACC maybe. Mm-hmm. And also in the future, we should definitely try to have somebody on or maybe a debate about intellectual property, because I think that would be interesting as well.
That would be spicy, because the debate we had privately just among my colleagues was lit last week. I will say it's like a weirdly spicy topic, because
especially in the internet space, because we all have something that we think we invented or something. So.
I know. But like even getting into like memes and do you own rights to images of yourself? Like there's a lot there, right?
Okay.
So I mean, we could maybe talk about it. I feel like that would be a really interesting discussion. But anyways, yes, you guys leave us a comment telling us what you want us to talk about next. Do you want similarly unhinged episodes where Olivia and I incriminate ourselves on camera? Let us know.
Whether they want it or not, we're going to deliver.
We're going to deliver. So that's our guarantee.
If it's been like more than a week without an episode, just know that the next one coming back is going to be like scary. But
yeah. But anyways, make sure to follow Olivia on Twitter and Instagram. What are your handles, Olivia?
I'm on Twitter. I'm back on Twitter. I officially, when I was at Freedom Fest, I downloaded the Twitter app again. And all of a sudden, everybody's making all this money on Twitter. So maybe I can get some of that coin. But that's not why I downloaded the app again. Right. But I'm on Twitter at Rondeau Olivia. Maybe a little bit. And I'm on Instagram at Rondeau.Olivia.
Awesome. And you can follow me on Twitter at Liberty Anders. Please boost my impressions. Help me get into the Creator Fund. That sounds amazing.
Please.
I would love a down payment for my first house. Yes, thank you.
In this economy, thank you, Elon. Period. I will gladly take that Elon coin.
And I hope you guys have an amazing week. Bye.
Bye.